Hello and welcome again to another screencast edition of Autodesk Maya. We'll be continue on the final detailing in regards to this. Just a little bit of a quick note. I did a previous screencast of this, but apparently I didn't save it. I did extrude the faces that are here to create this uh, low poly character. Let's see. There we go. So if you see my low poly character right here, you'll notice that I pretty much extruded this. All you need to do, say, selecting the faces. When making armor like this for like the shoulder pads and like the arm guards, all you have to do is use the paint selection tool and select faces within this area that you so choose. Just be careful on what you select. Right here, all you have to do is press Control E, flip the switch, pull out right here, and extrude, and voila, you got yourself a shoulder pad right here. Simple and easy. Pretty much the same thing for the arm guard, but just wanted to show you if you're not too sure. Anyways, moving on. So, I could easily make the eyes, but that's going to be a little bit time consuming. What I want to focus is making the additional stuff here. Depending on what you have, be sure to always make sure what you have right here face wise. I'm supposed to make, let's see, oops, here we go. If you look at the low poly character here, reset this. If you look at the low poly character here, he is wearing basically a big cape. So that means I would have to replicate something similar to that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right here, go to my vertex mode. If you haven't made an extra edge loop, or I recommend you either use the edge loop. Actually, you know what? I recommend that mostly that you use the multi-cut tool, because you may have to go in certain edges and areas that require a little bit of space. So you don't want to overlap anything beyond here, because that's going to be a lot of technical issues when you're UV mapping. So basically I created a multi-cut tool, making a cut from here, though I did make a triangle here and here, because that's the distance within this area that we wanted to focus, because that's also leading up to the cape. So anyways, again, I'm going to use this, pull this down to make this right here. So I might have to move a few things here and there. There we go. So now that we have our character set up, let's see. Let me move this up slightly here. Let's see. That's where you want what you want to do. You don't want to overdo it. So that means, let's see. Want to give enough space in between. Okay, so once you have everything adjusted vertex wise, you're going to use the paint selection tool to help you guide through this point. You may have to resize this. Okay. Okay, right here, I'm going to select my faces to the area where I need to be. Just making sure nothing overlaps within near the shoulder pad armor area. So you don't want to overlap anything beyond the neck because that's going to be a lot of technical issues that you may have to face in the long run. Alrighty then, fixed. So here you go. Again, fixed for the last time. Okay, so once you have everything selected, make sure you don't go anything beyond. Make sure that it's centered within this area. If you do have that, great. Now the next step is pretty much extruding. Make sure you flip the switch. Pull out from here. But if you make some mistakes like that I have right here, make sure you bring them out, re-emphasize certain areas here. Okay, you don't want anything. Okay, this time for real. There you go. So flip the switch, extrude outward, slightly pull up, pull down. There. I'm going to press the G key here. You don't want anything overlapping there, so you're going to try to use the best of your knowledge to help yourself out. Not going to be the best, but hey, I'm going to try. Alright. Just making sure that there is plenty of space within the area. Okay. It's a matter of adjusting. Again, adjusting thoroughly within this spot. There may be some technical areas that you may have to work on individually through vertex mode. Sometimes not. So I'm going to sort of refine some slight areas that I kind of missed. There you go. Again, sometimes you may have to work from the inside to adjust, refine, making sure nothing is overlapping of any sort. Whatever you have to fix, you're going to have to fix. That's what I mean. And here is some of the issues that you could easily fix individually. It's not going to be easy, but sometimes you just have to make sure you get the right amount of puffiness within this area to make this said object. So now that we have that, moving on. Now the fun part is trying to actually make the cape. So this means also we need to give just the right amount of room for this supposed cape in this area. So that means I would have to make a few selections here and there. Okay, so I'm gonna go to edge mode, make my selections. If sometimes the manipulator gets in your way, just press the Q button once to pretty much move things out of the way if you have to. Do what you need to do to make this work. So, yeah, that's pretty much the case. Um, Also, take in mind for adjustments on a few things. I'm gonna make things work. Okay, everything's centered. So Control E. This is gonna be the most difficult part because you want to extrude just enough to make space. Okay. And granted, you might go through a few technical issues. There you go. There we go. Fixed. Okay, better now. Okay, then continue extruding. Once you hit over the hump in this area, it starts getting just a slight bit of easier. You don't want to go a little bit too short, but you don't want to go a little bit too long. Again, you don't want to run the risk of sort of throwing things off completely. There we go. Press the Y key to sort of adjust. Well, now. And let this be a lesson also to make sure that you don't accidentally select any other excess edges in this area. Even though if it looks centered, make sure you always look all 300 degrees. So once you have this, again, I'm going to try it again. Wait, two. Hit the switch. Pull. Lift. There you go. I'm going to go to vertex mode here. Move this. Go back to edge mode there. Control E. Flip the switch. Reset the point of origin. Now, if you're a stickler for making sure that there's no, what's it called, normals issues, then it's best to nip this in the butt and go to face mode. Shift select your faces that you need to have fixed. Go to mesh display and go to reverse. It'll readjust any excess faces. Now, do be careful again not to over select like I just did somehow. There we go. Now going back to edge mode. Here, to make sure and inspect thoroughly not to over select your cape. So I'm finally caught something here. Making sure. Nothing over selected. Great. Now the fun begins again. Extrude by Control E. If you want to straighten out the cape, it's best that you do so. Pressing G, repeat the process again. So if you look here, he's gonna, this would be a good setup. Here we go. You want to stop. Sometimes you may have to make a stop on certain areas just to make sure that everything's moved out of place. Scale what you need to scale. If you have to, also rotate. Always a good idea to do that at all times. Fix, adjust, refine, what you need to do. So sometimes I may have to move a few things here and there. Now the cape is draping over his arm, but it's receding back to where it needs to be at. So want to recreate that same setup here. So we're going to move this, this, and that. Do be careful of overlapping. As I stated before, once you overlap once or twice, it's pretty much you're in the land of no return. So repeat the process. Repeat the process of selecting your edges. Do be careful where you select. You don't want anything overly selected in this area. So make sure it's centered. It is great. Always be thorough on checking. Ooh, see what I mean? Not to over select. There we go. Be sure not to over select your selections for the edges. Once you have that, great. Repeat the process again. Pull. Here we go. Scale in, straighten it out. Pressing the G key to extrude again, flip the switch. All right. I know it kind of looks silly the way it's proportioned. One last time, the extrusion, boom, bada bing, bada boom. Now you kind of want to leave it uneven instead of straight, because typical capes flow, and you want to fix that. Okay, so once you make the cape, last but not least, just use the Sculpt Geometry tool to help you out. Oh, there we go. Use the Relax tool here. Sometimes you may have to use this here. There we go. Now, on some rare cases, you may have to add an inserted edge loop just to make sure everything is refined nicely, so you won't have this case to pretty much overlap. Oops. Go. Yeah. Adjust any overlapping vertices, overlapping anything. Kind of want to avoid any overlapping stuff because in the long run, when you begin to UV map, the fun part is trying to get everything selected. Now, more or less, here we go, back to here, Sculpt Geometry tool. You have to you want to at least give yourself the space between your clothes and the cape. There we go. But that pretty much covers it onto that. Let's see, soften edge. There, perfect. If you're not really happy with like some of the hard edges here, select your faces or select your edges within this area that you want to readjust. And once you readjust it, you should be fine. So go to soften edge. All right, there you go. That pretty much concludes this tutorial for detailing. Thank you again.